So you want to learn how to drop in, but you don't want to die. And I completely appreciate that, because I don't want to die either. And as much as the drop in is 99% commitment and 1% skill, this video is not going to be me just telling you to just go for it, just commit to it. I'm actually going to give you usable mechanics. Think of them as building blocks to get your confidence levels to a point where you can commit to dropping in. Right guys, let's talk about foot positioning, because I rarely see people talk about foot positioning when it comes to the drop in. But when you've never dropped in before, this plays on your mind quite a lot, or rather it played on my mind quite a lot, especially with the front foot. You know, where do I put my front foot when I slam it down? Is it on the bolts? Is it just past the bolts? Is it below the bolts? Is it off the bolts, off the board, on the floor, in the air? You know, where do I put it? So we're just going to touch on this briefly. I'm going to start with the tail. Very simple. I've got my whole foot on the tail, slight angle. I feel extremely comfortable. You should aim to feel extremely comfortable and have a lot of control. I can slide the board on the coping like so, destroy my paint job. If you can destroy your paint job and still feel comfortable, you're doing it right. Now with the front foot, there isn't much time to think about where you're going to put it. People just tell you to slam down on the bolts, and they are 100% correct. So you're going to just lean into it here, okay? And I also have my foot at a slight angle like so, and then everything just goes down. I've got 3 tips for you, and you're going to want to stick around for the last one, but the first one is a very obvious one, and it comes in 2 parts. It's basically get very comfortable riding around on the flat ground at speed, because you are going to be traveling probably faster than you ever have. The drop-in might be one of the first things you ever learn on a skateboard, and you're going to be going from 0 miles per hour to quite a lot of miles per hour within the space of under 1 second. So that might be an unfamiliar feeling, and you can help alleviate that whoa by getting comfortable riding at speed. And then twinned with that, the motion of the transition is something to get comfortable with. And to do that, just get comfortable pumping on a half pipe. Just pump, 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 just pump for half an hour, and you'll get really nice and comfortable with it. Go up, come back down in fakie, and up and back and forth and back and forth. And if you do those 2 things to the point where you are comfortable, then you're not going to have any issues. Because what a lot of people do is they don't have the commitment issues like I did, but they do have the issues of riding comfortably at speed. And this is what causes quite a lot of people to end all commitment whilst they're mid-transition, and then they lean right back, because our body will naturally want to keep us upright, not moving, falling forwards. And I see a lot of people slip out, and you can hit the back of your head, bang. So wear a helmet and be careful, and get comfortable riding around on your skateboard at a relatively good amount of speed. Tip number 2 is a good one. It's basically stand on the flat ground with your back foot firmly planted on the tail of the board, and then bang your front foot down on the bolts. This is where you're going to be practicing the foot positioning that we previously discussed, but you're only just going to be doing it on the flat ground. Now, 2 things can go wrong. You can fall forwards, you're over committing to the bang, you know, you just want to ease it off a little bit. Or you can clip the board down and then fly out backwards. You're not committing enough to the front foot going down on the front of the board. And there is one crucial extra bonus tip to tip number 2, which is your front shoulder. I'm regular, so my front shoulder is this one. If you're goofy, it's this one. Everything follows your shoulder. Well, everything follows your eyes. Shoulder follows eyes, hips follow shoulder, feet follow hips, board follows shoulder? Feet. Board follows feet. Don't overthink that. Just, we're talking about the shoulder. This is not a human anatomy lesson. This is a lesson on how to drop in on a skateboard. So you'll notice in this footage that my front shoulder is actually going down towards the board. That's what's leading. That's the first thing to start to go down. The shoulder goes down first, and then my foot bangs into the ground. my shoulder is leading the way, it's directing everything. I'm obviously looking the way I'm going, but it's my shoulder that's the first actual body part to go down, so everything follows that shoulder. Don't overthink it, but if you are one of the people who is leaning too far back, just put a little bit of emphasis on that front shoulder dropping down towards the board, and ultimately that will be you dropping into a mini ramp, half pipe, whatever it is. Tip number 3 is the absolute business. Now this tip is the one that I applied, and when I ultimately came to stand over the coping, I had very little commitment issues with dropping, and I just kind of just did it and got it because of tip number 3. I first just want to take you back to tip number 1, where I was telling you to pump on transition. Now tip number 3 is where you learn how to tail tap or tail stall, or preferably both. So if you learn how to tail tap, you'll notice in this footage, I'll stop it mid-frame, that I am in the motions of a fully committed drop-in, but I'm doing a tail tap. If you can tail tap, and then you can learn to tail stall where you hold it longer, you're dropping in. You're already dropping in, but you don't have the commitment of, you know, the whole motion thing where, oh my God, I'm stood at such height, and then you just freeze up and don't do anything and go home and cry. Okay, maybe you don't go home and cry, but tip number 3, basically you're already doing it. You are already doing it, and a tail tap is far easier on the mind and on the confidence levels than a drop in. So if you learn how to tail tap, you develop that, try hold it longer and get the tail stall. And this is basically just put some weight down on your tail, clip, you'll hear the little bang on the coping, and you go back in. That going back in, that's a drop in. You've already learned how to drop in before you can drop in. I can't stress this enough. If you can tail tap, tail stall, you can drop in, and you'll get to the point where you stood at the drop in. I was stood at the drop in rather, and I just thought, I've already done this. I've already done this, bang, and I was down, and I was, oh yeah, that is simple. So learn to tail tap. Don't even go on top of the, you know, the top of the word's gone from my brain, where the top of the where you guys are now, the top of the ramp, the top, what's it called? The deck. Don't even go on the deck. Just learn to tail tap, tail stall, then go on the deck and drop in. Trust me, it works, gets your confidence up, no issues, tail tap. So I really hope that this video has helped you guys have the building blocks there in place that you can work on to get your confidence levels up to the point where you're up there on the deck, able to commit to the drop-in. Everyone has been at the point where they were on the deck and never dropped in before, thinking this is the scariest thing ever, and every time they commit and go down the ramp and do it, they realize that it's not the scariest thing ever. It is pretty much all in the mind, but there is a way to develop confidence, and I feel that these 3 steps are it. One other thing to mention is, how do we go from dropping in on a 3 foot to a 4 foot to a 5 foot to a 6 foot to a more and more and more and more? And the general rule is, the bigger the ramp, the longer that you have to stay compressed to the board. Just keep your knees bent as you are on the transition, and only start to straighten up when it starts to flatten out. That's why vert skaters, I've never dropped in on a vert ramp, but I really do aim to in my life. You see them, they are compressed as they go down the length of the vert, and they only start to stand up right at the very bottom. You basically stay compressed, keeping everything close and tight together, and you're zooming down. If you are down towards the board, you've less chance of wobbling, and I think that's what's happening. So the lower you are, the less chance there is of your board going like this and you going, and then off you go, off the board. I don't know what that noise was. It was an interesting noise. I don't know. Yeah, so general rule of thumb, the higher you go, the lower you stay for longer. Simple as that, and only start to stand up when you hit the flat ground. Let me know how you're doing with your drop-ins, guys, and also let me know if you apply the 3 tips from this video to learn to drop in. I'd be really keen to know that. I want to say a huge thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.